Welcome back to Weld.com, everyone. On today's episode, I'm going to show you all the things you need to know about cutting straight lines, circles, any shape that you want with a good old gas axe. Okay, so here's the plan for today's lesson. I've got this big hunk of 3/8 plate here, and what we're going to do is show you a few techniques when it comes to torch cutting. I've got this big torch here. That's probably not what I'm going to be using today for most of it. It is something that we're going to touch on, but it's not exactly practical for just sitting here cutting flat on a piece of 3/8. We got a couple of our torch cutting tools. If you remember, we did this video a while back. We're going to get some use out of them today to show you how to use them properly. We'll go over some layout stuff, and then we're going to get to more of a practical torch setup. This is my little handy torch setup. I don't ever use this hose because I got a bunch of other hose already. Got some gauges, some regulators comes with this setup, as well as my cutting torch. This is a much smaller, more practical cutting torch for what we're going to be doing. If I had a choice, I want to use as small of a torch as I possibly can for whatever application I'm doing it for. Less weight, I'm a small guy, I don't really like heavy things. Comes with a welding tip and a preheating tip, and then of course it comes with your cutting tip too. When it comes to welding and cutting, and preheating, especially cutting, there's going to be a few tips that you want to consider, and that really comes down to the gas you're running, which you can run propane or acetylene, but today we're going to be running acetylene, and it comes down to that material thickness. What comes with this torch looks like a 1AC. This is going to be good for 5/8 to 1 inch. The only other tip that I have that fits this is a number 2 tip. Now, if you want to learn more about the oxy-fuel process, the whole theory, the 9 yards, the pressures, the gauges, cutting tip charts for different gases, check out the American Welding Program. They've got a whole section where you can go and learn on your own as far as this process goes. You can even just buy the book if you want to learn on your own pace, and you don't necessarily need the course, but that course is there to help you along the way. We're going to put all this torch together and these regulators on the bottle, and then we're going to get to today's lesson. Getting everything set up here. Everything with your acetylene is always lefty-loosey, and everything with your oxygen is always righty-tighty, right? That goes the same if you're using a different fuel gas, because you still can use propane. If you want, go check out this old video that we did not too long ago about cutting the differences with acetylene and propane. But you also just want to start inspecting things as you go. If your regulator's in good shape, these are actually brand new because my other ones were left out in the elements a little bit too long, and they don't read properly, so we had to get some new ones. I've already started to hook up these hoses, and I immediately went to hook it up, and I was like, man, I can't be happy with that. They're not necessarily leaking, but looking at these where I normally connect it, it's been dry rotted. Sitting in the sun, sitting in the water. I'm not really comfortable using this right now, but we do have a hose repair kit, so we're gonna go ahead and put some hose together. I got that new hose. I think I got some other hose too. Might as well put all the hose together and have one long one.
Repairing an oxyacetylene hose really isn't all that hard. We'll start off by cutting the sections of hoses that are bad. We got a lot of dry rot in some of these spots, so we're just going to trim it back, cut it, and then you'll notice the ends on here, we're not going to just throw those away. We can still use these pieces for later. The two pieces that we're going to look at today are this barb here. It's got 2 male ends, and then the clamps. I'm going to show you kind of the wrong and right way to do it. The wrong way would be to push this barb in first. So instead of putting the crimp on first, I'm going to go ahead and push this barb, and it's really tough to push on, believe it or not. There is an easier way, and I'll show you later, but that's it without the crimp on first. Then you can put the crimp on, use your clamps, and then clamp it on. You can see that it's not seated on there properly. I'm going to use this oxygen hose and do it properly. This is where you put the crimp on first and then shove the barb into the hose. That way, whenever you get a proper seating on it after you crimp, you'll notice that this looks a lot cleaner. You want that nice clean connection. Everything's nice and tight and pushed together all the way, because we don't want any leaks when it comes to this process, that's for sure. And then you're going to go ahead and take the other ends. This is the easiest way that I've found. I won't say it's kosher, but if you spin the hoses, it makes those barbs slide in a whole lot freaking easier. And you do want to be paying attention as you push these barbs in. Make sure everything gets seated in properly all the way to the other end. And you can't do that if you don't put those crimps on first. And you'll notice a big difference in these hoses. Once they're pushed in all together, you can get your hose clamps and you can clamp things. Now, if you guys notice by now, there's something wrong with the situation here. Not only is one different than the other, but so are the freaking colors. I put the oxygen to the fuel and the fuel to the oxygen. What a freaking dingleberry. And this is what it looks like when you have both crimps, right? You have the barbs in at the same time. Now that looks pretty good. We're going to go ahead and keep going with this process one more time, maybe 2 more times I think I got to do to splice everything together. So we get something that looks like this, except I did it again. Oh my goodness. I can't tell you how mad I was. Take your lesson from me. Pay attention to what you're doing.
I did it again. Dumb. God damn. You can learn from my mistakes there, guys. Don't get in a hurry with what you're doing. That's not gonna save you any time because you're gonna have to go back and do rework. But we're gonna get to what you always ask about, which is what pressures do you set? Now we're working on 3/8 plate. That's gonna play into a lot of consideration of what you set it to. And of course the 1AC tip that we have, that Harris tip. So we're gonna go take a look at our regulators right now. Pop our bottle open on our oxygen. We can go ahead and open that oxygen all the way. You'll notice on my trailer I got it laying on its side. That's fine for oxygen, but for acetylene it always needs to be remained upright. It can cause a lot of issues. I've never done it. I've just always been told do not do it. So I definitely would recommend that. Then we can kind of set our pressures. This one's already set. You can see if I move this dial, nothing really happens until I get my working pressure. If I hit that lever, we're gonna see that needle move. That's what you want to set things to. There's a lot of different recommendations. I recommend, again, going to American Welding Program and checking out the courses there. They'll have cut charts for you there for no matter what gas or tip size and material thickness that you have. Now, I always recommend definitely checking out what manufacturer you're using as far as the tips, because they're going to have charts as well. This one recommends a wide range depending on the thickness of metal. Remember, it said 5/8 to 1 inch, so it's going to say recommend like 30 to 50 psi to oxygen. I'm going to remain somewhere on the low sides. 5/8 is kind of close to 3/8, so I'm just gonna give it a smidge over 30. And when it comes to the acetylene, we're gonna just crack that open with one crack and one good turn, and then we'll set that pressure. Again, we're gonna have to open up the acetylene valve and let some gas run to set this, and it recommends 5 to 15. 15 is unstable. I really don't think we really need to get way up into 15. I guess if we're using an undersized tip for some thicker metals, maybe, but we're gonna keep things somewhere around 7. I know that's not exactly a direct answer for what pressures you set, because just like welding, it's all situational, it's all circumstantial, depends on a lot of the equipment you're using, the material you're working on, plays in hand. Now, one big step as far as being able to cut a straight line and cut a nice shape or cut a nice circle, you got to be able to see. Seeing is probably numero uno, and layout is important to anything else in welding and fabrication as it is to torch cutting, right? So there are a couple of layout tools that I like to use when I cut carbon steel. I'd say the classic is your soapstone. I like to make sure it's sharpened at 2 different angles, one nice flat, one a nice point. As soon as they dull up, you need to be sharpening that thing. Kind of some flaws behind it. It'll break really easy. I always seem to lose it. It does dull up a lot easier. When it gets dull, it's not as accurate. So you have to make sure you maintain those points. When it comes to a scribe is an awesome tool for layout fabrication. It really gives the most accurate line. It's really hard to see in some lights, but at some angles, it's perfectly clear as day as to where that line's going, and it's not going anywhere. Unlike a soapstone that could be able to wipe away, that scribe's not going anywhere. However, it gives me the heebie-jeebies marking it, and if you mess up, it looks really bad. I would say a scribe is more for precision than it is necessarily torch cutting. And then you have, of course, your silver streaks. Silver streaks are a great layout tool for this color material. They hold up to a lot of good heat, so I think a silver streak is a good one. I think the lead breaks a little easier than I'd like, and these plastic ones always tend to splinter a little bit, so I always put electrical tape for an extra grip. Does not wipe off easy at all. And then we have, of course, our ProLine Markle marker, like a bright white. So obviously it's going to be probably the brightest to see next to the soapstone, and it doesn't wipe off. Obviously you want to be pretty accurate with it. I don't know, I like the way it feels on the end of the marker. It's really nice, it's really clean, it's easy to see. I've got a couple lines laid out over here as far as the scribe, the silver streak, the soapstone, and the marker. I'm going to make some cuts to get a little warmed up, make this long cut, and then I've laid out my lift lugs and some plate dogs, objects that I've cut a lot in the field as far as cutting circles and long radiuses and trying to keep these things straight and sharp edges as far as a plate dog goes. If you don't know what a plate dog is, it's one of these here. You can basically put it on another piece of material, and if you're trying to line it up with another, you can loosen or tighten that to pull or push. It's a really handy tool. I've cut so many of them, so I think it's a good application to cut some straight lines. We're going to do one nice and freehand style, and then we're going to do another one with some tools and try to walk through that whole process. Before we do that, we got to get suited up and ready to cut. We're getting things, as far as safety goes, it's pretty safe. We're going to keep everything out from underneath our cutting area. We got some 3/8 plates on some jack stands and on the table here. We've got our parts laid out. I used some 3M abrasives to lay out the lift lugs and just a carpenter square to kind of lay out the 90s and all that for everything else. When you're throwing a bunch of sparks, it helps to have some FR material on. So I'm head to toe FR along with some thicker gloves. These are some nice shorties here from Cayman, and it'll help me stay comfortable. With just like the ABCs of welding, always staying comfortable, cutting different shapes and different objects. We want to be able to move and maneuver. So good lightweight stuff, FR stuff, and definitely some T5 shades. I've seen guys cut with just regular cutting glasses, and I'm guilty of it too. But you'll find that you could see a lot better, cut a lot longer, and not be like seeing a dot at the end of the day. All I know is this feels a lot nicer, and it takes care of the safety glasses portion of it too. Feel free to wear a face shield. It can get a little splashback. Let's light this thing up. Get our striker here. We're gonna crack our fuel. We see, of course, we're working with acetylene, so we see that thick black smoke. I'm gonna run it until I don't see any of that black smoke anymore. And then I've got the oxygen at the bottom already wide open. And then I'm gonna slowly turn this oxygen until I get that neutral flame. Got a nice line through the center where that oxygen's going through. I don't hear any popping. If you start to hear popping from your torch, it's likely you have a dirty tip, or if you start cutting and it starts popping, you have dirty material, or you're cutting far too close. I'm gonna start cutting right on these lines, starting with the scribe line. It seems to be very easy to see right in front of me. I don't know if y'all can see it too. We haven't put any preheat into this. I knew that scribe line wouldn't do anything. Let's put a little preheat into this thing. See if this marker line holds up. See if that silver streak holds up to some preheat. Preheat's pretty crucial when it comes to torch cutting. I'm pretty stationary where I'm at. My hand's actually at the end of the cut. I'm not making a long cut now, so it's not a big deal. But we want to stay about 3/8 inch away. Cut on the edge, and you can really pick up speed from the edge. I really can't see my line at this point. I don't know which one was that. That was the silver streak. That one was really difficult to see as I started getting cutting. This is the soapstone. I can see that soapstone in front of me. Now this marker's had a lot of heat on it already. See how it holds up. Yeah, I can mostly see it just fine, so I think it's going to be fine, the fact that I've already laid it out that way. I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with torch cutting. Now with straight lines, you can cut a straight line pretty easily with a torch. One way to do that is you can kind of use the neck of the torch as kind of a pivot. And with a shorter torch, you know, you can go short routes with it. You only got that much travel. Let's see what happens if we switch to, say, this bigger torch. Oh, we got a leaky thing right there. Sometimes you'll see them little leaky boys. It happens. Don't panic. Turn the fuel off and tighten that old dog. If you notice that your torch is still popping, you know, you're trying to set your flame and it's like kind of popping periodically, maybe your pressures might be wrong, or even there might be a leak somewhere in your hose. A little bit more pressure. Because this is a bigger tip, we got a number 2 tip. This is a big torch right here. I've never found the need to use this but for one job. And let me know what you guys have ever used it for, but you can push or pull this and you have such a long reach. Hopefully I don't ruin this cut. Might be a little bit more torch than I can handle. Oh, that's a mess. That looks like an alligator bit that sucker. I can't slide it on my hand worth a dang. I've always found this to be pretty hard, but I've seen some guys that are really slick with it. The metal fell off. I cut into a jack stand, and it looks like an alligator chomped into that. But that is still a solid technique. I wish I could say I was better, but I'm not. That's why I like one of these burn bars. I like to set that up for myself so I can set myself up for success, because maybe I'm just not that guy. I'm the world's okayest welder. I'm good at freaking nothing anymore. Let me know if you guys have ever used a torch this size and what you actually use it for. I'm dying to know. I'd like to get on a job site where I can see some really thick stuff get cut. Let me know if you're the person I can see to make that dream come true. Let's cut with this burn bar and make some straight cuts. Let me remake my little line here with my burn bar. It's the line I'm going to follow. I'm not going to end up using this side. This is my beveling side that I can actually take the torch and drag on, but I'm going to use this side because we want to keep a nice straight angle on it. This one's a little taller of a burn bar than for my other torch. I have another torch. It's like a medium-sized torch. This is what I would consider a smaller torch, and I didn't turn on the gas, so let me do that. All right, let's get back in my lane here. I need to calm down. Let's cut something. I'm just going to simply hold this, track my torch from start to finish to make sure I'm on the same side of that line that I'd like to be on. And I'm just going to stay focused on that the whole time. We've got just a little bit longer of a torch distance than I'd like. I'm going to just simply pull it towards me. Trying to make sure I stay on the right side. The trick here is just trying to stay as squared up to your cutting tool as possible. If you can keep your torch straight up and down and your burn bar from moving, you can pretty much guarantee yourself a nice clean cut. Keep it straight up and down, and you can make a much straighter cut without even having to really try. We're gonna do some freehand cutting techniques this time. This is gonna be no guides or anything on this dog here and on this lug. I would say most of the time it's not even worth getting a tool out to do a one-off, unless it's just really easy to do so. We're always gonna start from the outside on the perimeter of stuff. We'll start with the plate dog. We're gonna cut it first. I don't wanna punch in on this. If I can avoid punching anywhere and I can start from the edge, or I kind of prefer to, maintain like 3/8 of an inch. The same thickness of the material that I got is all I wanna try to maintain. I'm gonna always cut on that outside edge. And when I get to that inside corner, I'm gonna stop way before it. I wanna be able to see my line on the inside of my cut. Where I'm positioned on the plate, I'm only gonna cut the horizontals here. At least this is how I would do it. I'm making sure my kerf stays to a minimum. On an outside corner like that, I'm gonna cut past it, hopefully to keep any corners sharp. I like to stay on this side of the plate still if I can, prevent moving. And I'm gonna do that little trick we did before, but with a little less torch. That jack stand is underneath there, but we got by it. We're gonna do the same thing here, except we're gonna push into it. Now the problem here is I'm maxing out my torch distance and my hand's getting pretty hot. I'm gonna have to reposition where I'm comfortable cutting, make sure my hose isn't underneath me. Cut on the line that I've already cut past to try to maintain the shape and the dimensions of everything. I'm trying to cut as fast as that puddle will let me cut. And then this little guy. Real quick business. Let's dive into this circle. Now punching a hole, I always will punch the hole before I cut the perimeter. Obviously, because it's holding everything nice and steady. You want to give yourself a lot of space to cut in so you get a nice clean cut. Don't punch in right next to it. You're going to lose some of your line. So I'm going to punch in somewhere in the middle and do a nice little arc to kind of pick up the same radius as the circle. The trick to cutting a circle is how do you finish? Where do you go? Can you make it all the way around? We're going to try to do it all in one. Make sure we get a nice warm spot. Oh yeah. We're ready to rock and roll. 3/8 of an inch distance away. Trying to keep that torch head square to the material. Can even pick up my speed a little bit if I want. I double back there to get that little bit that I missed. If we want to punch in on the side of a plate, we don't want to necessarily get as far away as possible. We actually want to try to save material, maybe get as close as we can, but without leaving that blemish next to our part. I'd say about 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch is happy enough business. I'm going to do the straight hard line first. And then I have 2 straight lines until I hit that radius. I'm going to come to the other side to hit that. I'm going to come straight up until I'm going to basically ignore that radius right now. Just a little bit. Just go past it just a hair. We can come back to the other side to maintain the shape of our lift lug. If you have to stop, that's fine. You'll just want to restart way away from your cut if you can, and then kind of loop back into it. Getting a little shaky getting close to me there. But you can see anywhere we punched in or crossed over, it's on the material I don't want. That's the idea there. Now guys, I did have full intentions of showing y'all how to use this burn bar a little bit more and showing y'all how to use this circle cutter that I made in that previous video, where we could actually just set that on there and then just maneuver this in order to make our cut. But I made those to a little bit bigger of a torch, so they're just a little, this thing's just a little bit too small for both of those, which is a little bit sad. So instead of showing how to get through those tools, what I'm gonna do is try to see if I can make it and one cut around each one of these. This is a little bit more challenging. We got to try to figure out where we're going to be able to make it all the way around without getting in too much of a bind. I always like to try to start uncomfortable with something and work towards being comfortable. So I'm going to start at this edge and then take off. And as soon as I get to my plate, I'm going to make sure I'm staying on the outside of that line. And then right when I hit that edge, I'm going to try to maintain that 90-degree turn. I'm getting a little bit side to side. This is where I'll start losing sight of my line because my head's behind my torch. Oh man, I'm starting to get shaky. Gotta find my zen. There's that comfortable spot again. Now we worked all the way around that plate, but my hand stayed in one spot. I didn't move or drag around. It was just a small enough part where we can work around. No sense in getting too meticulous about it and then just hitting it on the edge with a grinder, then you're probably pretty much set. I want to make sure that spot is nice and preheated for that punch through. We're going to punch away kind of just a little bit farther away and then drop in. That way we can protect our tip a little bit more in case of any splashback. That right there, that push up is what's getting me. So maybe instead of coming this way with that hole, I would drop down and then coming up that way maybe would feel a little bit more natural. For this piece, we'll try to cut in, and I want to come down this side since I've been having a hard time going up it, you know. Keep it about an inch away. That'll get a big spot preheated, and then punch in from far away, get a little closer, picking up speed. Yeah, that push up is what's getting me. I bet I can maintain this arc okay. Staying on the outside of my cut. I don't know, I already feel like this is feeling weird. Gotta rotate my hand. Definitely getting a lot of splashing on my legs. Leather boots and FR pants, man. I don't know if it's any prettier. Let's look at both of the cuts versus doing it in one go and taking nips at it. Look, I'll never tell you guys that I'm the best at any of this stuff. I used to be neck deep in welding and fabrication all the time. And I'm really into teaching you guys on YouTube, but I really don't do everything that I teach on the channel here every single day. I would preach that if you want to get good at welding, you want to be the best at something, you have to be doing it all the freaking time. That includes torch cutting. And I think the biggest lesson that I've taken away from this video today, including the torch repair thing, which was an absolute nightmare, was to take your time and pay attention to what you're doing. So these are the cuts that we took the kind of bites out of, and the directional cuts compared to the ones we try to do in a hole. I don't think they're horrible. I would say there's more jagged cuts for sure on the one where I'm trying to work all the way around. We're gonna have to spend a little bit more time rework, grinding or cutting, just like we had to do rework on those freaking hoses because I put them on the wrong sides. There's gonna be a little bit more work involved with those that if I just took a little bit more time, I cut my sides nice and straight. I didn't miss a line. That's gonna be, again, on me. But I think overall, the straight cuts on here are straighter, they're cleaner, they're less jagged compared to the ones on this sample here. I don't know what you guys think is a good cut, what's not, but that's rough. That's a really rough looking cut right there. This cut is 10 times better than this cut, but we want that all the way around, and you're really only gonna get that with practice. The guys that I know that can do this in their sleep do it dang near every freaking day. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video and took some lesson out of it. I know I humbled myself quite a bit in today's video, and just like a lot of videos that I make, I know I could use a little bit more practice on torch cutting. If you want to find out more about oxy-fuel cutting, check out the American Welding Program in the link down below. If you want to find out more about cutting torches, cutting equipment, tips, and all that good stuff, check out Harris Cutting Torch Products. If you want to look slick and keep flame resistant, check out Area Out Workwear. We'll be seeing you guys on the next weld.
Oh,